Welcome back. Today I'm going to answer a subscriber's question. Tiffany Cole wrote in asking if I had a recipe for making Mexican rice, the beautiful Arroz Rojo, studded with tomatoes, little bits of carrot, onion, and green peas. Now, this is the classic rice that you see in almost all Mexican restaurants across the United States. Unfortunately, I've had more bad Arroz Rojo than I've had good Arroz Rojo, and so when I'm eating out at a Mexican restaurant, I generally ask them sin arroz, like no rice. But today I'm going to show you how to make delicious Arroz Rojo, and I'm going to give you two options. You can either cook it on your stovetop in a pan, as I'm going to do today, or you can bake it in your oven. For this recipe, you're going to need tomato, both whole and chopped, onion, both whole and chopped, garlic, zucchini and carrot, peas, fresh or frozen, rice. Now I've included some herbs. I have bay leaf, Mexican oregano, and some salt. You can use chicken stock, you can use stock. Because I don't have stock, I'm going to use a bullion cube, water, and something to fry the rice in. Because I'm in Mexico, I found a wonderful butcher that has organic, hormone-free lard. So I'm going to go ahead and use lard, which is very authentic. But if you'd rather use olive oil or butter, both of those work beautifully. And as always, the full and complete recipe with any and all links will be below this video. Click show more and you'll see all of it. So this recipe comes together in two parts. We have the broth that we're going to make for steaming our rice. Then we have the vegetables that we're going to chop and finely dice. Those are the ones that are going to be sprinkled like confetti through the whole rice. It gives it visual appeal, it adds more nutrition, and it really is a worthwhile step. You could omit the vegetable pieces and just put everything in a blender and use that as your steaming liquid, but it's not quite the same. In the bowl of your blender, add your tomatoes, the whole chunk of onion, and your garlic cloves. If you're using bouillon, add that, and your water. This next step is really important. You want to rinse all of the starch off of your rice. I do that by pouring it in a large bowl and stirring it around pretty vigorously. See how milky that liquid is? You want to rinse your rice until the water runs clear. That ensures that you've gotten all the starch off of the rice. Starch makes rice stick together. Once you get that starch off, you'll be guaranteed beautiful, fluffy, individual rice kernels. Make sure this last rinse is really good because you're going to be adding wet rice into hot oil and it will splatter, so try to get as much of the water out of it as possible. Place a medium-sized saucepan over your burner and set the heat to about medium. Add in your cooking fat. Add the rice and the onion to your hot oil. Saute your onion and rice in your hot oil for about 8 minutes. Make sure you stir constantly because it will burn. This is important to keep the texture really nice and from that rice just splaying open like you see in a lot of Mexican restaurants. You'll know your rice is done when it starts to turn just slightly golden brown. You don't want it brown, you just want it a shade or two darker. This recipe was brought over by the Spanish. There's a lot of controversy over what kind of rice you should use. Traditionally, Spanish rice is made with a short grain rice. Here in Mexico, medium grain rice is the most commonly used and most commonly available. But I prefer long grain rice. So the moral of the story, you can use any kind of rice you want, but I think you get a better, tastier Mexican rice with long grain, especially if you use basmati or jasmine, which is, I know it's heresy, it's not Mexican, but it makes for a delicious Mexican rice. After about 4 minutes, you'll be able to smell the rice starting to toast, and it smells so good. This sautéing process also gives the rice a really beautiful toasty flavor. If you are enjoying this video, hit the thumbs up. It really does help. I can see that my rice is starting to darken. It's went from a white to kind of a creamy color. And I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of my vegetables. My cut tomato, my diced carrot, and my zucchini. I'm going to add in my herbs, green peas, and give this a stir for just a minute or two. After a couple of minutes, go ahead and add in your tomato broth. Now I'm adding in a little bit of extra tomato sauce that was left over, but you certainly don't need it. If you like your rice extra tomatoey, you can go ahead and substitute a tablespoon of tomato paste. But be careful with how much tomato you add in. It doesn't absorb into the rice as well as water does. Turn your heat up to high and stir your rice until it begins to come to a boil, at which point you want to cover it with a tight-fitting lid, reduce the heat to very low, and cook for 20 minutes. Now if you were to bake your rice, you would take the content of your sauté pan, once you've added the liquid and brought it up to a boil, and pour it out into a baking dish. Tightly cover the baking dish with aluminum foil. You want to trap that steam in there. It's going to help the rice cook before it dries out. Cover the entire thing. Place it in a 350-degree oven for between 30 and 35 minutes. Now after 20 minutes, don't peek. Don't peek before 20 minutes. It's the cardinal rule of rice. You never peek. But after 20 minutes, the rice needs to rest. Cut the flame, leave the lid on, and let it sit for 10 more minutes. What that does, it just ensures that all of those grains have sucked up all of that steam, and it will give you a fluffier rice. Gently fluff it with a fork and serve. Transfer your rice to a shallow baking dish or your serving bowl and enjoy. Now this Mexican rice warms up beautifully. You can just add a few drops of water to the pan, put it over low heat. In about 10 or 15 minutes, you'll have fresh, hot, beautiful rice. You can also use it as a filling for burritos. You can stuff roasted chilies with it. You can top it with a fried egg, or just eat it straight out of the refrigerator cold, like I generally do. I hope you enjoy this recipe. Thank you for being here, and may all of your rice be fluffy and delicious. If there's a recipe that you would like to see on a future Fresh Princess video, leave me a comment below and I'll see if I can't get to it. Thank you again. Bye-bye.